I'm an assistant editor for BBC News, and I'm the editorial lead for BBC Young Reporter, and have helped and developed the project's news literacy work, particularly over the last sort of 3 or 4 years now. Time flies in a pandemic. So yeah, this is me on social media in 140 characters or whatever it is, a bit of a sense of who I am. I'm a member of the Ofcom Making Sense of Media Advisory Board. I've worked for the BBC for very nearly 20 years. Didn't know journalism was going to be what I was doing. So it gives you a bit of context for who I am and what I do. Obviously, I'm going to be talking specifically about some of the BBC's activities to do with media literacy more generally, but particularly news literacy, from online safety materials that BBC own it, sort of oversee and provide, to the work that Young Reporter's been doing in this space. And so this is Young Reporter. This is my day job. It's a project that works with 11 to 18-year-olds across the UK, helping them develop their own media skills, news literacy, and my specific role with an editorial hat on is helping them share their stories with wider BBC audiences. Formerly known as School Report, the project's now in its 16th year and has evolved somewhat since that time. That was kind of, YouTube was still a new thing, and social media and smartphones really weren't kind of everyday objects in quite the way they are now. So things have absolutely evolved in the media landscape, but also obviously in education. But we continue to base the project on the same values, which is helping to empower and inform young people to create content and to understand the media landscape that's relevant to them, but also in their future. Young Reporter offers young people the opportunity to tell their own original story ideas with the BBC, but also much of our work is providing outreach and workshop opportunities for schools, colleges and youth groups in the areas of news literacy, a wide range of media production skills and storytelling, as well as kind of career opportunities and Q&As relating to future broadcasting careers. So really trying to kind of be transparent about what it is that we do in broadcasting. It's a partnership project run across the BBC. So I sit, as I said, within BBC News, but my colleagues are based in the BBC Education, that's Teach and Bite Size, in terms of the brands, and also the BBC Academy, which is the kind of HR and early careers department within the BBC. Any school, college or youth group working with 11 to 18-year-olds in the UK can get involved. You'll find more details on our website. Why are we, as the BBC, why are we in this space? Just to contextualise, it's actually part of the organisation's public purpose responsibilities, the fulfilment of which is part of the Royal Charter and the basis of the BBC values. So these are some of those values you can see on that slide. The first public purpose, as you can see, is to provide impartial news and information to help people understand and engage the world around them. We have a kind of duty to provide accurate and impartial news and current affairs and factual programming. And in doing so, we obviously have a responsibility to ensure that we can support young people and all of our audiences to access that and understand the editorial remit that we are coming to them with. And we do that across the BBC in a number of different ways, but certainly in terms of young people, that's through CBBC, children's programming, BBC Bite Size, Young Reporter, and the Beyond Fake News work and resources that are online. More recently, we started some very specific news literacy work in this disinformation, misinformation space, exploring some of that transparency and demystifying the sources and reporting process, which the project had always done, but increasingly we were hearing from teachers and young people that more of a context of that would be really valuable. So we launched the Real News resources and workshop activities in 2018, and we've increasingly been delivering those, albeit in a virtual space at the moment. And we asked young people, is it real? And hopefully provide some simple tips about how to spot misleading and false information, particularly that they see online. So with that in mind, I thought I'd give you a quick taster of one of our video resources that is available online, but also that we use in those workshops.
Fake
news. We think it's a problem.
I think fake news is a problem because it can influence how people make decisions.
It leaves me feeling like I don't know who to believe.
And it worries me that people are growing up misinformed.
And if we're misinformed, how can we understand the world around us?
I think it's a problem because it leads to confusion.
And we begin to mistrust all news sources.
But what exactly is it?
And how do we spot it?
Fake news is lies and propaganda told for a political or commercial purpose which deploys digital technology, social media, new networks to go viral, to reach around the world and influence millions of people very, very quickly.
So what about news that's just wrong, like when someone's just made a mistake?
Mistakes can be made. Journalists sometimes make mistakes too. Or sometimes you might be reading a story and the headline could be misleading. Or a photo in that story could have been changed in some way. It might even have been changed to make you laugh, to make you want to share it. These stories we wouldn't necessarily call fake news, but they are misleading in some ways.
So if fake or false stories tell us something is real when it's actually not?
What about when someone tells us something is fake or false when it's actually real and true?
If you're a politician who wants to close down debate, then you might use the phrase fake news because you don't want people to ask you questions about something uncomfortable. And that's a legitimate area for democratic inquiry, so it's really important that we're clear about what fake news does and doesn't mean.
You're feeling confused, I'm feeling confused, right? There's all these words, fake news, hoaxes, spin, but in the end, just be aware that not everything you see online is completely true.
It might be helpful to think of it not just in black and white terms, but that there's lots of different ways that a story might be misleading or inaccurate, it might be spin, and in all of these situations, it's helpful to step back and just ask yourself, is this likely to be true? Does this feel right? Before you go on and share it on social media and pass that story along.
So that's an example of one of our video resources that we have produced as part of this kind of real news project and programme of activities and resources. We have tried to utilise BBC staff that are in those jobs in the newsroom and do some of that unpacking of some of the key terms associated with critical thinking and news literacy. So this is just an example slide of some of what we talk about, and that kind of very loaded term fake news is something that we try and shift away from, as you probably gathered from that video, and thinking about what is real and thinking about how can we navigate news rather than just get caught up in what's fake about it. And we also talk about not just the what, but the who. So we like to explore some of the key players, about those that are sharing the different types of false or misleading information, and explore a bit about why they're doing it. This is a simple kind of visual overview that comes from the BBC's disinformation team, and it was part of an original online news feature produced by Mariana Spring, the BBC's disinformation reporter. She identified 7 types of people who start and spread viral misinformation: the joker, the politician, the conspiracy theorist, the insider, the scammer, and also, of course, our friends and families and celebrities. And when talking to young people, we try and look at different examples of these and explore some of the motivations behind them. And at the moment, and we constantly evolve this workshop when we're delivering it, we're looking at through specifically the lens of climate change related stories and coronavirus. When we first began the project, it probably had a bit more of a political focus, but we will try and shift that kind of the lens that we deliver the workshop to a relevant theme or subject area for the young people that we're delivering it to. Back to the real. In these sessions, we also obviously want to support young people with things that they can do in their own kind of navigating of news and information online. And so we ask, is it real? And this is a bit of a checklist that we encourage them to think about perhaps employing. And I'm sure you're aware there's loads of news literacy and media literacy checklists out there. In my experience, they all serve the same purpose, just to remind us of some of the basic principles of critical thinking. There's no kind of right or wrong one that you use, but hopefully one or two of these points will stick in young people's heads, and they will utilise them when they're on their smartphone or in their future academic careers too. And yeah, what is it all really fundamentally about, and why do we do it? Well, trust and impartiality are the two core BBC News values, which as journalists we try and live and breathe, and they're what audiences tell us most matters too. The first of the BBC values is trust being the foundation of the BBC. We're independent, we're impartial, and we're honest. But it's a challenging time for public service broadcasting and news reporting in particular. And unsurprisingly, in the period of the previous US president and with the pandemic, my BBC News colleagues have been increasingly dealing with all aspects of fact-checking and debunking of stories in social media particularly, as well as responding to the challenge of upholding trust in our journalism and news reporting. And it's therefore no surprise that a couple of years ago, the former Director General of the BBC, Tony Hall, convened the Trusted News Initiative, which was about media organisations and pan-industry broadcasters coming together to collectively work in evolving and empowering and amplifying trusted news and reporting. And partners in that were global or are global, including AP, the Financial Times, First Draft, Reuters, Microsoft, The Hindu, Washington Post, etc. And it's just a reminder about the challenge of news literacy and disinformation being global. It isn't just about us in the UK, obviously. And when Tim Davie became the BBC's 17th Director General last year, he put impartiality as our top priority for any of us working in the organisation, not just in news. And so it's no surprise that last year, my colleagues from the BBC Reality Check team, BBC Monitoring, as well as other teams within BBC News, formed the Disinformation Unit, which now more formally collates and collaborates to deal with both our on-air editorial reporting of disinformation, misinformation, and stories related to it, but also through research and collaborating and sharing insights and skills within the organisation, but also externally. What impartiality means in reality is obviously really about a blurring of opinion and fact in reporting. And I think that's one of the challenges that we find young people struggle with when we're talking about news and reporting information that they might be seeing, particularly online. And so that's an area that we particularly increasingly have started exploring in the Young Reporter Real News activities and workshops. And this video is another example of a resource that explores that particularly.
My name is Rachel and I'm a journalist for BBC Reality Check, the fact-checking team, and I start most of my days checking the news on my way into work. One story today has particularly caught my eye. It's a report from the BBC and it says Melton in Leicestershire has come bottom of a list of places to live if you're under 26. Now, is that a fact? As a journalist at BBC Reality Check, I couldn't let that claim slip by without taking a closer look. Let's see.
Hey, yeah, that's a good question, but what makes something a fact?
Robert is the BBC's head of statistics. Go on.
Well, for us, a fact is a claim about the world based on data. It's verifiable, it's something you can check.
In this case, it came from a BBC survey of 378 local authorities in England, Wales and Scotland to try and find the most desirable place to live. They looked at lots of things, including access to healthcare services, sport, leisure, shopping. And once they looked at all of those things, they concluded that Melton in Leicestershire was at the bottom of the list.
Well, it's a fact to say that Melton came bottom of a list ranked by these variables. But you'd steer clear of saying best or worst, because that's a conclusion and it's based on judgment. Now, experts can help guide us through a complex set of facts and figures, but it does take judgment to do that, and that's where opinion can creep in.
Okay.
Well, let's take this pretend jar of water I have. Say I fill it up to the 50% mark. That's a fact. but is it half full or half empty?
Yeah, okay. But why is the difference between a fact and opinion so important? Maybe one of my colleagues will have a good answer for us. Soda?
Hi. Well, we come across this quite a lot when we're looking at disinformation, opinion dressed up as facts. And the problem is that sometimes this can leave the impression that something is a fact when it's actually an opinion. Good journalism will be clear about that difference. By the way, I've never been there before. What do the people of Melton think about this?
Thanks, Soda. You're right. What do the people of Melton think about where they live? I bet Imran, who works on the story for Newsbeat, knows.
Hey, yeah, well, we wanted to get the reaction of the people who actually lived in Melton to coming bottom of our rankings. So we actually went there and found out to get people's opinions.
So what did they say?
Well, we spoke to one woman who actually really liked living there. She said there's lots of nice green spaces, it's a really pretty town. She said maybe a few more things for her child to do would be good, a few more cocktail bars for her. But in general, she really liked it, liked the number of cafes and coffee shops where she could just hang out.
She seems to quite like living in Melton.
You're right, she does, and that's the thing. It may have come bottom of our rankings, but her opinion matters, and opinions can offer some real insight into a story.
Exactly. Opinion and fact can both help us to understand a story. We just have to be able to tell which one is which. Facts are something that can be verified. We can prove whether they're true or not. Whereas when it comes to opinion, that's someone's point of view. It's based on their interpretation of the facts, based on their personal experience.
So encouraging young people to ask questions and consider their own decisions is also at the heart of the BBC iReporter game. This is an online interactive, create your own adventure game that the player puts themselves in the role of a journalist working on a breaking news stories. And do they veer towards speed over accuracy? It's your chance to give it a go. And although this fictional story related in this game is aimed at secondary age, particularly I guess Key Stage 3, we've had really positive feedback that actually at that top end of primary, it really works for too, albeit that the story that it's based around relates to social media and the use of it. I just kind of always put that in as a caveat. That's available online for people to use. And also in the last 2 years, my BBC Bite-sized colleagues have also considerably extended the range of online resources for 11 to 16-year-olds in particular with the Fact or Fake campaign. This is an array of online articles and videos that are on the Bite-sized website, ranging from quizzes and practical tips and videos. And there are also quite a lot of online materials that are available for parents too. And I thought I'd show you, I think on the next slide, an example of a social clip that was produced by the Bite-sized Fact or Fake team. And so I've spoken about secondary age focus particularly, because obviously that's my particular day job expertise. But CBBC also has some media literacy space too. Firstly, of course, there's Newsround, which going into 2022 turns 50. That's when my journalism actually started, in fact. And that's a daily news programme and platform for children to learn about what's happening in the world and sharing news and current affairs stories that are relevant to them, both online and through their TV bulletins on the CBBC channel every day. And then in 2019, the BBC Own It launched, which aims to provide a helping hand to children aged 8 to 13 to have a happier, healthier and more positive life online. That project and this initiative was born out of the cyberbullying task force that Prince William then chaired. And as Own It tells children, it's here to help you be the boss of your online life. Whatever you need, help, advice, skills, and inspiration. There's the Own It app, which has a unique keyboard which supports the well-being of young people when they're online and through their phone, as well as a plethora of resources on the website, which help young people track feelings, has quizzes, also lots of videos involving familiar faces to them to support their navigation of the online world in particular. And then lastly, Aging Up. I wanted to mention the BBC Beyond Fake News collection, which is resources from across the BBC, not just for young people, but Trusted News Initiative conference slides and recorded sessions, materials from Bite Size and Young Reporter, obviously, but also My World, which is a global equivalent to Newsround and has lots of media literacy resources. And they're all available on the BBC website, including some resources in languages like Hindi for people to access and utilise in any of your teaching. And that's it for me. Bit of a one-stop shop of information about what the BBC is doing in this space.